We speculate, why does the American League stink? Plus, react to the latest CBA proposals involving the amateur draft.
Hello and welcome to Baseball Barbacast, the only baseball podcast in the world that thinks the Boston Red Sox need Tartan Army City Connects. I'm Jake Mintz. That's Jordan Shusterman. And let's get Isaiah Kiner-Falefa in a kilt.
I would appreciate that. It would certainly be a way to acknowledge the appreciation for those Scottish fans who have made the Fenway Park atmosphere a lot livelier than it deserves to be. However, those Scottish fans are already giving the Red Sox more money than they probably deserve. And to go even further into that, and amid a season that has gone so far off the rails, I just don't think that that's a good thing. So I'll slightly push back there.
On this show, we will talk about the Boston Red Sox and a whole bunch of other American League teams that kind of stink. What really is the difference between the American and the National League at this point? Frankly, not much. But if you look at the standings, there is certainly quite a discrepancy. The AL is an ugly excuse for a circuit, Jordan Shusterman, at time of recording. The National League in interleague games is rocking a .558 winning percentage. They are 191 and 151 against the American League. That is the best winning percentage ever in the history of interleague play for one league against another. If you take a game, like in the modern era when we're playing all these games, if you take a look at the standings, the American League is just a total mess. There are how many teams above 500 in playoff spots? 5. They have 5 teams in the entire league above 500. Jordan, why is this happening? What do you make of it? And does the American League have a chance to pull itself up by its bootstraps and get back to relevance? The entire league.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different things going on here. As for the why, I am not quite sure I am fully prepared to answer. I guess when you look at the teams that have records that are disappointing, and I'm wearing a Jays hat today. The Blue Jays currently sit in a postseason spot despite being one game under 500, even after sweeping the Red Sox this week. Those teams above 500, the Yankees, White Sox, Mariners, Rays, and Guardians. I mean, I keep looking at just the run differential discrepancy that stands out so much. I mean, right now, and we can bring the National League back into this, there are 4 teams with a plus 100 run differential. Dodgers, Braves, Brewers, who we spoke about earlier this week as, all right, look at these 3 National League powerhouses. Which of these teams is the best team in the National League? Which, depending on what you think about the Yankees, is also the question, which of these teams is the best team in baseball? But the Yankees are right there, too, at plus 18. The 5th best run differential in the sport actually does belong to an American League team in the Seattle Mariners. But that's way down at plus 23, and they're only 2 games above 500. So when you ask me why
stinks.
this is... Well, right. And so that'd be my first takeaway as well. But maybe we just have very few good teams overall. But let's focus on the American League teams that have let us down, because the way we get to this point, and the interleague nugget that you gave is fascinating and something I am invested in for the rest of the season, since we have all this interleague play. And why yesterday, when the Guardians managed to not get swept by the Brewers, I was like, all right, yeah, show some fight. Well, I love this.
Come on, AL.
Yeah, you can
in
do
Angels
it.
in the outfield. Angels in the outfield, the Angel Al has the hat that just says AL, right? Like, I need an AL. I'm going to buy an AL or NL hat. Hey, could I wear that to the yard?
I will say, actually, this is a good time to do this, because every year at the All-Star Game, as little as we care about the All-Star Game and the result of it, we do always joke about, especially nowadays when interleague is so common and the balanced schedule, whatever, the difference between these leagues is, and of course universal DH. We've always speculated, are there people that really only care about one league? I would say one thing I've noticed is that this is kind of still true for beat writers and for like broadcasters. Like, they do not pay attention to the other leagues in the same way that we do as people that cover the whole league. But as far as fans go, do you actually have any loyalty towards one side or the other? But I say that because who are the American League teams that have let us down, right? When we looked at the American League and said, oh man, these could be interesting races. These could be teams that we expect to be contenders that we're thinking about as taking on the Dodgers in the World Series. Besides the Yankees, who have generally held up their end of the bargain, not that their season has gone perfectly, but they look pretty freaking good. Who are the teams that are talking about? Because that's how you get to these really underwhelming records this far into the season.
Pick one. Go. Like, I think it's the team on your hat, the Toronto Blue Jays, even though they did just sweep the Boston Red Sox at Hampton Park in Scotland. The Blue Jays, having been the American League representative in the World Series a year ago, probably are the single biggest disappointment so far this season.
Well, I mean, they're in a playoff spot, so
they're one game under 500.
We can't be too harsh. And again, relative to teams like the Red Sox, who are actively bad, teams like the Tigers, who are actively bad. But I do agree that we haven't talked about the Blue Jays very much. They've benefited from how bad those other teams have been. And yet, I just think about how we were, not just because they were in the World Series, it's what they did afterwards. It's how they continued to push, spend. Here's Dylan Cease. Here's all this money immediately. We mean business. So we're going to chase Kyle Tucker, and thank goodness we didn't get him. We're going to get Okamoto. We're going to, we've got all these other pieces. And part of that also, I think what's also been weird about the Blue Jays is that we are still watching a lot of different faces. It doesn't feel like we're watching the exact same team as last time. Now that last year, now that Savage is back, we're starting to get a little bit more like, oh yeah, this was the team we were watching just run all the way deep into October and into November. But that's, I think, the part of it that makes it feel different. We're not watching all the same characters. And with the thing with the
Blue Jays, right, is like last year felt like blast off for them. It was like, this is about to be a juggernaut institution. They have been lying in wait. They have been hibernating in the weeds, ready to pounce, to elevate to the next level as a franchise. They have all of Canada behind them. They make this run to Game 7 of the World Series. They spend big money for Dylan Cease, Tyler Rogers, Okamoto. Time to go. And it's just been meh. And it's been meh in large part because Vladdy, I know he homered, I think yesterday. I believe Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has yet to hit a home run at home this season.
Oh my God. Is that true?
Like, excuse me?
Oh my goodness. Is that? You are correct. Oh my gosh. That is a really
Why haven't you homered
stat
at home?
So, I might have to prepare that leaderboard for next week. We'll see if Vlad can get on the board here soon. Yeah, I think that definitely has contributed to it. But I think also what's really confounding about the Blue Jays, and yes, I know they've been missing so many players due to injury, but man, like there's some stuff going really well. You look at this season that Louis Varland is having. You look, Dylan Cease is in the Cy Young conversation. He's exactly what you paid for.
Is somehow still doing it. Like he's going to be an all-star.
Ernie Clement has... I'll be honest. We love Ernie. I said after the postseason last year, I was like, if you're counting on this guy to be one of your best hitters like he was in October, I don't think that's a good plan. And it's a 103 OPS plus, but still, like he's been a really good player. Brandon Valenzuela, like you lose Kirk, and here's Brandon Valenzuela, who's been one of the best catchers in baseball. Like you've had things go right. Maybe it is Vlad, and let's bring up another one here. What's another reason why they were amazing last season? It's George Springer.
Bo Bichette.
Well, Bo Bichette. It's George.
The pride of the Canadian people.
More George Springer than Bo Bichette last season. I mean, if we're being honest. I know Bo had some big moments at the end.
I do want to change the tenor of this briefly. Of all of the teams in this American League muck that I believe the most in, I do think it is the Blue Jays. Because they have sleepwalked their way to where they are at less than full strength without George Springer being good, without Vlad hitting a home run at home. All of that combined makes me think, well, oh, they just have to do these other things and they'll kind of shoot up the standings. Um, I am less worried about them. I think they are the team that I thought was going to be like in it and, kicking down doors and taking names that hasn't quite done that. But let's scroll down these standings a little bit more. I think we should talk about the Tigers and the Red Sox next, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've already talked about them plenty this season because they've been so bad and because we're talking about Scooble and we've got more Red Sox dunking later. Frankly, the Mariners are still part of this conversation. I mean, that was another team that was in the ALCS that roster quality wise coming into the season, even people beyond Seattle were like, well, this is clearly one of the best teams in baseball. The projection system said that as well. And they just haven't been able to get really hot. They have not been bad, but it's just been constant 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So I still think they also deserve criticism. But as you mentioned, relative to some of these other teams, it's hard to focus on them too much. So I agree with you that the Tigers and the Red Sox are the teams that we both picked. I know I picked the Red Sox to win the division, idiot. Tigers, I think you picked to win the division. Maybe I picked to win the division.
No, Jordan, I picked the Royals to win the division, which is just as smart.
Oh, great. Well, we want to talk about them?
Sure. They just rolled in to DC this week, and I saw them. And, Vinny's now out with the handmade problem. Bobby Witt Jr., I think, left yesterday's game early. The Royals just don't have any sort of organizational depth. And so when there's any level of injury, they're promoting a player that is below replacement level. And over time, that is kind of what's hurt them. The bullpen has not been very good. Someone at Nats Park the other day was like, I think they should just trade Bobby Witt Jr. and start from scratch. I was like, yeah, but one, do you trust the people that built this bad team to get the right value back for Bobby Witt Jr.? Two, the Nationals are obviously, the person making this was from DC, the Nationals are your inspiration here for the Juan Soto trade. They nailed it, and they still have been bad before this season. That's a hard trade to pull off. And three, keeping Bobby Witt Jr. around is really the only way you're ever going to be good in the next stretch of time. And so that is just not going to happen. But the Royals do seem pretty hopeless. And worse than that, Jordan, the Royals are a real contender for the most irrelevant team of this season.
Dude, especially if Bobby Witt Jr. goes down for any amount of, and hopefully that's not true. He's the only thing keeping this thing afloat. I think trading Bobby Witt Jr., I would say, is the only thing they should not be considering doing. I would be open to anything else on terms of shaking up this roster. It pains me to say this because one of the most fun breakouts of the season. But frankly, we thought Maikel Garcia was ready to be a top 20 player in the league, and he just hasn't been that. Not even close. Not even close. I mean, they just paid him this offseason. He was, 5-6 WAR player last year. So there's still some pieces to like here, but they're so far out of it that they are not a team I'm expecting to have any sort of hope of having a surge forward. Whereas some of these other teams, you can kind of talk yourself into it, whether it's Houston, whether it's Baltimore, Texas, I can never get excited about. They just got swept by the Twins. Yeah.
Congrats. Can I take a shot at the why? I mean, part of it to me, so like the obvious place to start would be payroll, right? Are the richest teams in the other league? And the answer to that is kind of like, if you look at the top 10 in payroll, you look at top 9, I think it's 6 NL, 3 AL, 6 and 4 if you go in the top 10. That's not really overwhelming, in my opinion. You have the Mets in that group, and they've been really terrible. I think maybe the difference is like with the Dodgers and the Braves and the Brewers, you have these operations that have just been running so smoothly in a very similar way for a long time, right? Like the leadership in LA, Atlanta, and Milwaukee has been kind of streamlined. I guess that is similar to what's going on in Cleveland, what's going on in Tampa, what's going on in New York. I guess
and
what's going on in Seattle.
To a degree. Yeah.
I'm just trying to suss this out. Maybe the answer just is random chance and the ebb and flow of the baseball season. Do you have any bad hypotheses about this? Because like I spent a lot of time thinking about it yesterday and I couldn't really pick anything out. So I'm just trying to throw, bad ideas to the wall here.
That's actually a really interesting point, and maybe this is just this snapshot in time. The White Sox are another on the positive side. We're excusing them from the conversation and consider that a compliment. They are, after avoiding being swept by the Yankees last night, are up to a +1 run differential, but they are 5 games over
Congrats.
500. But if you
Raise
look
it.
at those other teams, and Toronto has also had a fair bit of stability at the top. I mean, you look beyond that. Minnesota, turbulence. Texas has, I guess, had a group that won the World Series in place, so they're a little bit of a different
A
conversation.
lot of roster
but it's not-
turnover.
but a lot of roster turnover. Orioles, turbulence. Elias has been there, but turbulence, as we know, at the ownership level. And I know some of those things are good moves, but managerial changes, whatever.
Astros, the epitome of turbulence.
You can't have more. You're firing James Glick after winning the World Series. Turbulence.
The Astros
Royals
have the Astros have the oxygen mask dropping down from the ceiling level of turbulence. Like, please help yourself before helping the person next to you if you're watching the Astros.
Red Sox, obviously turbulence. And then Royals and Angels, it's more like, you've been kind of here
Do
for a
something
while.
different.
What have you accomplished? What's going on here?
The
and then the
difference
Tigers
between marinating and rotting is the temperature in the oven.
Yeah.
Or the fridge.
That is an interesting hypothesis, and maybe it is something that's benefiting. I do think it's the reason that we talk about Milwaukee, and I guess even Atlanta, with the exception of last season, that you default back to those teams, and why even when
we felt that way about the Astros.
Yeah.
We felt that way about the Astros forever, and I think going into this season, I was done with that. Like, I pulled the plug on that belief, and I kind of took the energy with which I treated the Astros and gave it to Milwaukee, and I have been rewarded in that regard.
Sure, yeah, but I also think, again, when Fangraphs tells you that the Guardians only have a 15% chance of making the postseason, that's probably wrong.
Let's finish off here. How many teams in the AL do you think stink?
Honestly, I think it is just like stink, like are a bad ball club. The only teams I still feel like I 100% feel that about right now is Angels, Royals, Red Sox, and Tigers. Tigers, I'm somehow not actually there yet.
They're 14 games under 500. They're 14 games under 500.
They sure are. Tigers and Astros. No, I'm not. I'm actually not going to put the Astros there.
Okay.
Stink. They stink. Like,
and in the
overburied.
NL, I think 2 teams stink. I think it's just the Giants and the Rockies, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the Mets. I'll put the Mets and the Tigers in the same bucket. The Tigers have a much worse record, but I'll still throw them together as, like, I don't like what's going on here, and I'm not feeling good about it turning around. But you cannot tell me that it is impossible. Okay. That's where I'm at with those. Whereas the rest of them, I'm ready to say adios.
So right now on June 19th, we have the Yankees, White Sox, and Mariners atop divisions, and we have the Rays, Guardians, and Blue Jays in the AL wildcard spots. When the season is over, how many of these 6 teams are playoff teams?
What's is the over under 4.5 or 5.5?
5.5? I would say 4.5.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. So it sounds like you do not.
Well, I might take the under on 4.5.
Oh, okay, even on 4.5. Okay, I'm not sure I would. I'm really all right. So make the case for one of these other teams. Go ahead, even vaguely.
Yeah, I might take the over. Actually, on second thought.
I don't think I would take the over on 5.5. I think I would take the over on 4.5. I think.
So you think it's 5? You think 5 of these? Teams?
I think the White Sox really do have a shot here. And I made this point when we were preparing for the show yesterday, and we'll leave it on this as a positive White Sox note. I've compared the White Sox to the Nationals as teams who they were right there at the bottom. next to the preseason projections, it was okay. The Rockies are at the bottom, and then it was the Nats and the White Sox. Those are the next two. And here they are, both of them over 500, in a playoff spot, or Nats basically almost in a
They
playoff
were
spot,
the
and the White
second
Sox
and
in first
third
place.
worst teams in all of baseball last year. The Rockies were 43 and 119. Yep. The Nats were 66 and 96. The White Sox were 60 and 102. These were the second and third worst teams in the world.
And if you're talking about teams that have surprised pleasantly this year, the Nats and the White Sox are there, and we could put the Cardinals in there too. They're 7 games over 500. And we were talking about how, okay, which of these teams do we think has the best chance to make the postseason? And if you look at Fangraphs, we can pull up exactly what they tell you right now in terms of playoff odds. But I really do think that it is the White Sox. And the reason I feel that way is partially because of what we just talked about for 20 minutes, which is that none of these other American League teams are exciting. And the other part of it is that I think that this White Sox front office and where they have been and what they have accomplished and what they have kind of cooking, this team feels way more likely to try and push forward. Whereas from a leadership standpoint, I think that the Nationals and the Cardinals are going to trust the process. That doesn't mean they're going to totally tear it down at the deadline, but I also think they're way less likely to add aggressively. And so I think that the White Sox are looking at this as a real opportunity, and I'm really curious to see what it looks like for them to push forward. Because I don't see them as in a situation where we'll be like, no, we got to be measured and disciplined. They're going to be like, ooh, this is fun. Let's try and win.
Did the Nats and the Cardinals score too early, right? Like their plans feel like slightly ahead of schedule, and the White Sox feels more on schedule, but like beyond what we expected, if that makes sense. Like the White Sox, we expected the slope was up. For the Cardinals and the Nats, we expected this year for the slope to be even or even down. And so I think that is an important distinction how the teams view themselves. To finish this up, Yankees are good, man. That's a good team. That's a good ball club.
Yankees are sitting up there at 99.4% playoff odds according to Fangraphs, right behind the Dodgers at 99.9. Oh boy, would I love to live in that 0.01% world for those Dodgers to miss the playoffs. But probably not going to happen, folks. So we will leave it there. White Sox 30%, Cardinals 47%, Nationals 7%. Yikes! Nats fan producer Colin Brennan and my brother, they don't like that number. Sorry. We're going to take a break. When we return, back to the CBA shenanigans. We'll be right back.
Let's go. Let's go. And welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. Let's go around the league. Do you hear the chants? CBA. 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 That's what the people want, and that's what we're going to give you as the league and the Major League Baseball Players Association continue to negotiate-ish, bargain, sort of, as the current system running our sport is set to expire on December 1st. We are gifted various news nuggets via the media, and we got some pretty juicy ones yesterday as Major League Baseball revealed to the public its plan to reshape the current amateur baseball system, to reorient the way that players enter our sport. That came in the form of a proposal for the international market, namely an international draft, and that came via a reworked system for college baseball's path into pro ball. No more high schoolers eligible in the draft. Sophomores are now eligible out of college. There is so much here. We could talk, Jordan and I could literally talk about this for an hour and a half. In fact, we did yesterday, just like on the phone. We understand that not everyone listening wants us to get into the nittiest of the grittiest. So what we're going to try and do here is the following. What matters? What from these proposals is actually relevant? What is compelling enough to spend time on? Because both the league and the union can offer these pie in the sky ideas. What is the point of wasting time on them if they're not actually going to happen? And so let's begin on the international side, which we think is the more likely to eventually occur.
Yeah, I think because this topic is something that was relevant last time and was almost implemented, this feels like something that will remain part of the conversations in earnest. Whereas you call it a rework. I mean, that's the understatement of the century when it comes to what MLB came to bat with here in terms of just completely just ripping up what the current domestic amateur draft looks like. But we're going to put that to the side and focus on the international element of this. And you can find the specifics of this proposal on MLB.com if you look for it.
Hidden. You got to look
it is
for it.
not. It's not on the headlines on the side, but if you go to news and you scroll down, we have this story with the details. But I think we should set the stage of like how does the international market work now?
Yeah.
And what are they trying to change for better or for worse? And why do we think that? I mean, my view and the fact that why they brought in the domestic side of this is they're just like, well, this is the draft, this is amateur baseball. Let's throw this in here, this absurd proposal in here, and then we can work backwards from there. Same thing with the salary cap stuff. Let's just come in swinging. Both sides come in swinging with our huge crazy asks, and then we'll slowly work towards the middle. But because the international draft was something that was discussed last time and was bargained about and almost got there, this feels like something we need to keep focusing on. So let's talk about what it is now and what they're trying to get it to.
All right, what's the current system, friends? Well, the current system, the international market is anybody outside of the United States, Canada. This includes Puerto Rico. Okay. Puerto Rico is subject to the draft at present. Anywhere else, anywhere in the world, players can sign with teams at any point after their 17th birthday on September 1st of the year. This ends up meaning 16, right? So like the cutoff is you have to be 17 by September 1st of a year, but because the signing date is January, most of these guys are often 16 when they sign. Okay. The overwhelming majority of the players that we're talking about here are from the Dominican Republic and Venezuela. I would say those two countries make up 95%.
Ooh, I wouldn't go that high.
2%.
It's probably
Panama, Colombia, like it is an overwhelming majority. Cuba still, right? Because these kids are eligible at 16, it's not as if they wake up on the day they sign and they're like, I'm going to choose the Reds. No, these deals are agreed upon well in advance of that signing date, with kids as young as 12 or 13 agreeing to verbal deals with teams, even though that is technically against the rules. Every team does this, right? Like every team, maybe one or two don't, and they're teams that don't have as many good players as a result. This is just how it works down there. It is gross. It is uncomfortable. It is how it goes, right? And these kids, because they're signing at 12, 13, 14, they're leaving home 10, 11, 12 to go live at these Dominican academies where they train and they practice and they're put up. Those academies end up getting a chunk of the players' signing bonus when they do join a team. That creates a bunch of wonky incentives. What it also does, though, is it funds the system. And I was talking to someone yesterday about this and how, like, the way you almost think about it is like a car from the 1980s that's like taped with duct tape. But if you were to like bring it in to your mechanic and they moved anything, the whole car might fall apart, right? And so it is true that the system either needs an incomplete rework or to stay as it is. Half measures at this point don't feel sufficient.
Yeah, and that is why the league is proposing and has proposed in the past an international draft, which would be a separate draft with hard slots. Now, the bonus slot system is also part of the domestic draft where teams have an allotment of money that they can spend on their draft. To a degree, they can spread it out over different picks and they can negotiate along the way among those 20 rounds. In this case, it would be hard slots. So basically, the top pick would just get X amount of money, and so on down. It would just be designated. There would be no negotiating. But in the same way,
I just want to stick on that. Can I stick on that for a second? So that
Yeah.
does two things, right? One, it removes like the free market negotiating aspect of it, which is something that the union on principle is going to be against. It also
Yep.
would remove a ton of the shenanigans that makes the international signing market a wild west, a place where kids are using steroids at a very young age, a place where people are lying about their ages. I do agree with MLB that a
Mhm.
lot of that would be removed using that system. It should also be said, it's like the hot dog meme from I Think You Should Leave. Who did this? Right? MLB is the most responsible body for allowing the system to go so far off the rails. They're the one that adjudicates it by taking their hands off the wheel. They have helped to create a situation that is not ideal down there. But at this point, when you talk to people that are down there, the people that I talk to, Jordan, would prefer to have a draft to
Mhm.
implement a level of structure.
Yes. However, the other massive change to this system, which I can't remember if this was something that was being proposed last time, is to raise the age for the international amateurs to 18 or effectively 17 um, from what it is now. So if that was to be the case, you would now have these players be still in DR Venezuela for longer, waiting to be eligible to join professional baseball. The goal of that, you could it's not that hard to understand what the goal of that is from MLB's side. Now they can say, well, this is good. That means that they are getting more of an education and they're training and they're closer to what they're going to be. So MLB can have a better evaluation on these players rather than agreeing to sign them at 12 and 13. That's fine. Okay, sure, to some degree. But the bigger thing, and this is also related to eliminating high schoolers from the domestic draft, is to stop players from getting into baseball sooner, getting into pro baseball sooner. Because who are signing the biggest contracts? The players that are getting to MLB at a really young age. And in a lot of cases, that's Juan Soto because he signed when he was 16. And he got to go to pro ball and start his professional career and show everyone that he was already one of the best players in the minor leagues. By the time he was in American players' cases, should still be in high school, right? Should still be in college. And so by delaying the entry into pro ball, you're just pushing the whole clock back. This is related to the domestic draft as well. But getting back to the general draft, yes, they
Wait,
are.
hold
I
on,
do
and
think,
land the
yeah,
plane. Like you're pushing the clock back because it is saving money, right?
yes,
If
yes,
these
yeah,
guys are signing their contracts instead of Juan Soto got paid what he got paid because he was going to be in his prime for longer with the Mets,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
If Juan Soto, the same level of player, signs that contract at 29, he's getting significantly less money. And so
Oh
by
yeah,
pushing that clock back, it's a little tricky here, and maybe this is too in the weeds. You're really pushing it back a year and a half because of when the signing is right now, like the signing date, because the international draft would be in the fall. It's like a year and a
mm-hmm,
half further along than it
yeah,
is now. Um, and even if you understand the league's incentives, the other incentive that I do think is relevant and that I do agree with to a certain extent is that right now in the current system, if you're a scout down there, we know a number of them, right? You are trying to evaluate whether a 14-year-old is going to be a good player in a decade, right?
mm-hmm, yeah, it's
Making
absurd.
that evaluation a year and a
Mm-hmm.
half later down the timeline is going to lead to more reasonable outcomes. Teams are going to get better at identifying who is good and who is not because you are closer to the final product. Like how this 14-year-old child is going to grow to become 6'3" or 5'8". You don't
I
know.
agree. Yeah,
If they're
yeah,
a year and a half further down the line, they're closer to what they're going to be.
for sure. The part that I am struggling to like wrap my mind around in the version of this system that happens is what are these kids doing? Like how does the academy set up? How does the training of the players, who is becomes responsible for that? In theory it's the same ones, and I guess in theory those academies
They
could
still get a
still
cut.
they could still get a cut by saying we're training your whenever they get drafted in the second round of the international draft and sign for X million dollars, we're still going to get it. So I guess that wouldn't change, but it's just a longer time for them to be pulling. Now, to your point, maybe that's a good thing because you're getting a more fair evaluation. It's more like the amateur draft where you have a draft combine for international players that's closer to the actual draft as opposed to these kids that are agreeing to deals 2-3 years before they're even signing. And so you're not even seeing them. No one is even seeing these kids play for multiple years once they've agreed to these deals. And that hurts both the signing team and then the teams around the league.
I think there is something from where we sit that feels icky about these academies, particularly knowing what we know about the steroid stuff. I do want to slightly, not like defend them, but provide a level of context here. So in America, if you're a high school player, right? If you're a high school player and you're training and you're trying to get better, you are playing travel ball, you're going to, a private coach if you got the coin. You're playing baseball. Baseball costs money. Who is paying for that, Jordan?
You're probably your parents. Yeah.
Mommy and daddy, right? Mom and dad are paying for that. That doesn't function in the Dominican. That doesn't work. It doesn't work that way in Venezuela. It could work that way for some players. I'm not trying to say every single person, but the overwhelming majority of players, like someone has to pay for this training, right? And in the DR and in Venezuela, it is these academies. Now, not all of them are following it by the book, and they're not all doing it for altruistic reasons every time. But if you were to just like rip these academies out of the system, then you would just kind of have this law. Like, we're not just going to implement travel ball in Venezuela in the same way that it functions in the States. And so what the league, to my understanding, is offering is some sort of amateur league that exists down there for players of a certain age. Even still, you're going to end up having kids go to academies. And some of the kids that go to academies, like, yes, it's hard, it's far from home. For some of them, it is a step up in quality of life to be in the academies. So I just want to offer a level of nuance here that, like, the problem, the thing that feels icky is not necessarily all the academies. It is the wealth discrepancy brought on by, late stage capitalism and the difference between the first and the third world.
And that is why this is really hard to talk about and why we try and do our best to speak to the people that are already operating in these systems. As people know, we obviously follow the Dominican Winter League closely, but that also has brought us a lot of contacts to people in the DR. We've been down there a few times.
We go down.
We're hardly experts. Yeah, we're hardly experts whatsoever. But even spend a few days there and just talk to people in the scouting community, in the baseball community, in people that are just down there in the Winter League community who have nothing to do with affiliated baseball. This is really what makes it hard to talk about, and why the fact that experience, that these real lives and livelihoods are being negotiated and being on behalf of people that obviously do not have their best interest in mind. Sure, parts of MLB's proposal might be for the best if we're just picking what the best possible option is in a difficult situation. But to me, that's what's icky and what is most challenging is to talk about these in the context of a negotiation, what's fair, what's even best for player development, when we're just talking about two completely different literal worlds,
right,
and opportunities and privileges and financial hardships. And that's just, it's such a huge part of it. It goes so far beyond baseball that it makes it hard to talk about.
But when we talk about any proposal, it's like, okay, this is good. This is good for whom? Right? Like, what is the goal of any of this? In my mind, like, the goal of any international system is fairness for the players entering it, and it's for the health, like having a more structured system down there is going to reduce the amount of kids that are taking performance enhancing drugs. There was a great story earlier this year from Alden Gonzalez about a kid that passed away tragically from using steroids down in the DR. Like, to me, that's the priority. Now, MLB, do I think that they're approaching this from a place of altruism? No.
Right.
But the upshot of the proposal, I think, makes sense. And the last point on the international market that we will make is that in the union's response to this proposal, something was missing. What was that, Jordan? You noticed this.
Yeah, so MLB puts this out. We get it officially on MLB.com with the details of their proposal around 2:30 p.m. Eastern yesterday. And a few hours later, we get a response from the MLBPA. And I mean, I can read it word for word just because it's not very long. But nowhere in it does it explicitly say we are opposed to the draft. They have a part in here pushing back on the timing of the draft. In here it says, quote, like what they're saying that MLB is doing that is bad, or flat out bad, as they said. Quote, abolish an entire year of international signings. Yeah, by delaying the first draft until at least September of 2027, denying young international players the ability to start their professional careers. So that's a small thing there, but they are talking more about the timing of this draft than the draft at all. And I'm making this distinction because as we are hearing, and we did the first round of sparring between the league and the PA, a lot of it has to do with the salary cap. And in everything, the first thing you're going to hear from Bruce Meyer, or whoever's speaking on behalf of the PA, is, or the players when they get asked about it, is, okay, well, the salary cap is not something we're doing. So whatever the details are about it, that's not something we're doing. That is not the case with this international draft, and why I think, for better or for worse, it is going to remain a chip that potentially both sides want and are okay with, that gets kind of pushed back and forth and massaged in different directions.
It's not as if the union is shy about telling the league when they disagree with something, right? Like if the union didn't want an international draft, if that was a priority, they would have said it yesterday. Right?
Yeah. And
they say stuff. Now, this is a whole other conversation. This statement sucked. It was poorly written. It felt haphazard. It felt cobbled together. It was full of stylistic and grammatical mistakes in a way that felt rinky-dink. That being said, if the international draft was a war they wanted to wage, it would have been mentioned. And I do think that is revealing. And that is why we just spent so much time on this, because unlike all the amateur proposals, I think when we wake up with the new CBA, we will have an international draft. I think when we wake up with the new CBA, high schoolers will still be eligible for the draft.
Yeah, I think that's right. And again, also part of the pushback in the PA proposals, right, eliminate over $1 billion in player compensation from the international domestic system with a $400 million reduction. That's focusing on the numbers that they're proposing in the draft system, but not the draft itself when it comes to the international thing. So I just wanted to point that out. All right, a couple minutes on the on the domestic proposal, because this is what definitely sparked more of a reaction, because it's new, and these premises are the first time we've heard MLB throw this out there explicitly, and so it
not the first time we've heard people rumoring about this.
Sure.
We should be
clear.
Like,
but
this has been something that's been bubbling behind the scenes for a minute.
Yes, but to see it thrown out there officially, MLB saying we don't want high schoolers to be picked anymore. We want great, don't worry, college players will be eligible after their sophomore year. I could do a whole pod on this. Talking to people all of yesterday, how preposterous this premise is.
It seems like you got more and more frustrated as your day went on yesterday.
Correct.
As you talk to more people, I could feel your anger from across the country, getting
and
higher. Your blood pressure rising.
I'm gonna hold off relatively here, and if this remains in the news, I will, maybe I'll write about it, or maybe I'll be a little bit more specific. But if your first instinct is, oh, well, that's great, all the best high schoolers would go to college baseball would be even better. College baseball, golden age, whatever you want to call it. College baseball right now is in a good spot, as MLB points out in their proposal. It offers more exposure, and the development opportunities are better than ever before, and college baseball is in such a great time. A lot of that is correct.
All true.
However, college baseball is also already dealing with, because they shrunk the draft already, and because of the NIL era and the transfer portal, where more of the talent is being pushed towards the top handful of programs, and the discrepancy between resources when it comes to development and just overall when it comes to paying players through scholarships, through NIL, is already starting to get out of whack. We are already at a point where rosters are overcrowded, teams are overcommitting high school players, and very good high school players are already going to college and not playing, which forces them into the transfer portal cycle. This would exacerbate that to such an absurd degree. And frankly, as MLB points out, the thing I do agree with, you are taking away a path into professional baseball that has existed for decades, that has given us some of the most important stories and players and careers that we have ever seen is through the high school path. Yes, there are players that probably could use college, and this is something that is going to be different for every kid. Taking away that opportunity to sign as a high schooler and once again delay the entrance into professional baseball, which is the point, to then come out and try and paint it as for the good of the kids when this would just not be good for most of the high schoolers involved is insulting and ridiculous. And I just, not to mention that it would hurt college baseball and complicate college baseball in a lot of ways, that just because, great, now these top high schoolers, okay, cool, Grady Emerson, who's about to go top, great, all right, awesome, now I get to go watch him play in college baseball.
But you would care less about him now. Like Grady Emerson saying like, oh, Connor Griffin out of high school, that would be so cool to watch. Like you would know less about Connor Griffin out of high school if he didn't have the opportunity to enter pro ball right away. Like then they just become like these kids that end up on campus. They're not getting more famous as a result, right? If the entryway doesn't exist. To me, though, the thing that you haven't touched on yet that is so important for this conversation is the difference in priority between a low A baseball team and LSU, between the, Trash Pandas and Mississippi State. The minor league baseball team is there to develop players, to make them better, to prepare them for the major leagues, to be an impact player down the road, right? What that means often is prioritizing development over winning. The college teams, the priority is winning. If you don't win as a coach, you will be fired. We're talking about hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars in coaches' salaries. And so what you're going to end up with is players that need to play. Like Connor Griffin is a great example. Connor Griffin needed to play baseball. He needed a swing change. He needed to get reps. If Connor Griffin shows up at, I believe he was committed to Mississippi State. Is that right?
No, he was LSU. He was LSU also.
He was LSU. Connor Griffin shows up at LSU. He starts on opening day. He goes 1 for his first 23. Totally possible. Bench.
He might
transfer
be
portal.
Right.
Abyss. Right? Like there are certain types of players that don't need that environment. Certain players should go to college to grow, and certain players don't need that. And I think that MLB trying to use college baseball as this free, publicly funded developmental incubator,
that's the thing,
is savvy and smart and whatever, but it is unrealistic and kind of misunderstands the purpose of college baseball in the first place. And that is to win games and frankly, have a good time. And it further de-amateurizes this entity, which to be fair, has already been de-amateurized by NIL and the portal and whatever, and these facilities and these stadiums. And I get all of that. I am just worried about a further homogenization of the type of players and stories that end up at the top level of our sport.
That is
we can end it there.
There's so many. If you're focusing on the player development part, you're focusing on the financial part. Obviously, anything CBA related has to do with how much money the players are making, how much money the owners are saving, whatever. Let's move that to the side. One of the reasons I love the sport, why I never get tired of it, why I love the amateur stuff, is because of the infinite number of ways you can get into professional baseball through a high school in Wyoming, through a junior college in Oklahoma, through a Division III school in Wisconsin, or you did go to LSU and you were a superstar and you were on ESPN every weekend. You are basically saying, you know what? Let's make this more like football and basketball, where all the best players go to the same 15 schools and the same 15 schools are winning every time. And listen, some of these problems are already happening in baseball, but there's still just enough because the sport is so different and so random that we're able to keep the opportunity to have Troy get to the College World Series and have some of the best players get drafted out of mid-major schools. But to take away the high school route, and as you mentioned, yes, that's what is so sad from someone who cares about the stories of these people and these players, to just make it all, let's funnel all these in. And then back to your bigger point, and that is maybe the simplest way to describe this. You are offloading development to a place that might be able to develop as a byproduct of trying to win, but it is not the goal. The coaches are not paid to develop future major leaguers. And so if you put in this proposal that we are saying, oh, they get to have this incredible development, and that we don't have to pay for, it's a joke. It's just not how it would work. That it would not benefit the kids. Some kids sure could, but that's already happening. And it's so insulting and so frustrating to try and paint it off as something that's for the best, because it's just not.
Just one quick example of how that manifests, and then we'll take a break. Change-ups. Okay. Most high school pitchers have bad change-ups because most high school hitters can't touch their fastballs, right? So why would a high school pitcher ever throw a changeup? When those high school pitchers get into pro ball, teams will often send them to low A or the complex, and they'll say, today in this game, you are throwing 20 changeups. Okay? Mm-hmm. I don't care if the ball goes over the fence. I don't care if it hits the backstop on the fly. You are throwing 20 changeups. And then over time, they learn how to use a changeup, and a percentage of those pitchers get to the big leagues and they get good at it, right? In college, if the kid's changeup isn't working, they're either not throwing it or they're not pitching. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
That is just one little example. That is just one little itty bitty example of why this is out of whack. So to wrap this entire conversation up, best we can, you can tell that we're passionate about it. We think about it a lot. I am for an international draft. I think it is a necessary, somewhat evil at this point, and I do think it will happen. The proposal that we got yesterday from MLB on the domestic side is just like so different than the current system that I don't think it will be implemented as MLB proposed it. We will come back to this over time as we get more specifics and the date draws nearer. There are reasons to be concerned, in my opinion. There are a couple of things that are compelling, I'll admit. But on the main, I'm out. I'm out on that proposal. And I feel like you generally agree.
Yeah. So we will see which of these or any elements of this remain relevant. Like, as we've said, we think the international draft will remain relevant to some degree. But some of the other stuff, oh boy, I could have kept going for a while. But let's cut it off there. Let's take a break. When we return, some more Home Run Derby chat, College World Series Finals, good, bad, Uggla, and then we'll wish you a wonderful weekend. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. Before we do the good, the bad, and the Uggla, we have one thing we need to talk about. The Home Run Derby, it is a changin'. No clock, yes clock, some clock, all clock, outs, swings. Who knows? The Home Run Derby is going back from the timer to a swing-based format. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of this because we will talk about it ahead of the Derby. Jordan, how do we feel about this?
So, right, for the last few years, we've had, the format changed a few times, but this is a pretty significant alteration because something that the Derby has been, the almost frantic nature of it, where you're trying to squeeze in as many home runs as you can within the clock. You're getting bonuses for how far you hit it. There are bonus rounds as well. Now it is, you have 20 swings in the first round, 15 swings in the second round, 15 swings in the finals. Doesn't matter how many outs you get. So you could, but so I guess the maximum home runs you can hit now is 20.
No, it is not. It is not, because if you keep homering
at the very
on your
end,
final swing, you can homer until the Messiah comes.
That's true. Okay,
as long as you continue to hit the balls over the fence on the final swing. Now,
on the final swing,
this is
significant. Does lower, though. It does. Indisputably, it lowers the likelihood that we are going to have a
Any
Julio
conversation
Rodriguez
about
style round.
records, about all
Yep.
time, these
Yep.
big numbers, those are gone. And like, I'm
Yep.
okay with that. This is happening because the Derby is going to be on Netflix, and Netflix wanted to alter the way that they were doing it in order to make it a more watchable product. I understand that. We are biased and we are skewed our perspectives because we have been in attendance. I like the clock based format in person because it feels like you're drinking home runs out of a fire hose, and that's what I want. Like, I want, like, oh my god, oh,
That
homer, oh my
is
god, oh my god, ah! Right? On TV, I understand that is always not the best watch, and so I am open minded about this.
and that's the thing. That's you just described the whole shift right there. Regardless of the exact rules and who it benefits, whatever, it is the feeling of someone getting hot under that previous format where they are just on a freaking roll. And yes, maybe their pitcher's thrown it a little bit earlier than they should in the stadium is incredible. And that's what Julio gave us. That's what we've seen Vlad, we've seen Soto, we've seen that kind of groove. Caminero is very special. Now, a guy now homering multiple swings in a row is still going to be very exciting. It will just be slightly different feeling. I totally understand why Netflix. We should be clear. Netflix did not say this was our idea. The reporting based on it says they were involved in this, and it's just logical that whoever was broadcasting this is looking at how it has been in the past, where it has been a little chaotic, and said, how can we either slow this down or make this a little bit more digestible? And so I think in that respect, I understand it.
Yeah.
And hopefully it does improve the viewing experience for those at home while not diminishing the experience of those in the ballpark.
All right. Enough home runs. No more home runs. I hate them. I've always hated them. Let's do good, bad, Uggla. One thing good, one thing bad, one thing Uggla from this week in baseball. Jordan, what do you have for me?
I will look ahead and I will look backwards in Omaha, Nebraska, where on Saturday, game one of the Men's College World Series finals will begin between Oklahoma and North Carolina, two programs that have not won a national title in a long time. North Carolina has never won it all. Oklahoma has not won since 1994. They also won in 1951. Everyone remembers that classic College World Series. Just kidding. That was a billion years ago. I'm so excited for this championship series. These are two programs that we've seen in Omaha, but have not quite gotten over the top. You have a team in North Carolina that has been one of the best teams in the country all season long. And pretty early on, it was like, yep, this team can win it all. They survived a scare in the super regional round against USC to advance to Omaha again. This is their 13th trip to Omaha. If they lose again, that will be the second most all time without winning it all, behind only Florida State. But I really like North Carolina's chances here with their pitching rested, with how well they're swinging it. And then you have the Sooners. Oh my goodness. This team finished 11th in the SEC. They lost their first game in the SEC tournament. They got sent to Georgia Tech in the regional, assuming they would just get crushed and no one would ever remember their season. And instead, they caught fire and they look completely unstoppable in a way that I have. It kind of reminds me of, honestly, the Ole Miss team that beat them in 2022. But it has just been an incredible watch to watch both of these teams. They both went undefeated on their sides of the bracket, which is really cool. But the one other Omaha moment I wanted to mention is what happened 2 days ago. Georgia, Oklahoma are playing a game. Oklahoma's blowing them out to advance to the finals. And Colby Branch comes up, a senior in his final year of college baseball, down by a bunch, and hits a home run in his last collegiate at bat. Now, that would be a cool moment in any circumstance to hit a home run in your last collegiate at bat before you get eliminated. But even cooler is the fact that his brother Kyle plays for Oklahoma and was playing second base. And the fact that these guys got to play on the same stage together against each other in Omaha, and then for Colby to still have that moment where it was clear that it was the end because it was a blowout, but also he could celebrate it and both sides could acknowledge and to see the parents there, like, just one of the coolest stories ever. I also, Colby had gone to watch Oklahoma and Kyle play at Georgia Tech because they had won their regional, and Colby went to watch them earlier. So just a really cool baseball family. And now Kyle gets to play for a national championship here. But Colby Branch, if you did not see that clip of him hitting the homer, just one of the just classic stuff. Really, really, really cool. So that's my good. Watch the championship series.
I'm pulling for the Tar Heels. That's a
Yeah.
team that deserves the title.
Yeah.
My good this week is Curtis Washington Jr. Now, this was on my radar, but I did learn a new bit of information courtesy of listener to the show, Gunnard, who emailed us. Hey guys, I know this is probably already much on Jordan's radar, but if you're struggling for an Uggla, no, it's a good. Curtis Washington Jr. getting called up from high A seems perfect. So here's Curtis Washington's story. He's from West Memphis, Arkansas, 3 different colleges before that was a thing people did. Drafted by the Mariners in the 19th round back in like 2022. He has not really made it up the chain. He's like a speed defense outfielder type with not a lot of pop. Maybe a 5th outfielder one day in the big leagues. But the Mariners had a string of unfortunate, poorly timed injuries earlier this week where they put Randy Rosarena on the IL, and then Luke Raley had like back tightness during batting practice. And so they needed a player like later in the day. Tacoma, the AAA team, was on the road, so they couldn't call someone up from Tacoma. So they had to call someone up from Everett, their high A team. And so they called on Curtis Washington Jr., who drove down like in an Uber. He did not, unfortunately, appear in the game, but he was on the roster for a day. Now, the reason that this is good is that, Jordan, do you know about Curtis Washington's musical career?
This was also something that I think I've known vaguely throughout his career, but not to the details that we got from our listener.
Curtis Washington Jr. Has 2 rap songs on Apple Music and Spotify. One is called Modesto, where he spent a number of seasons in the minor leagues with the Modesto Knights. And the other song is called Everett, where he was in high A. Okay. So he has a song for each level. Okay. In the Everett song, he shouts out manager Zach Vince, like like the skipper, like gets a shot. Curtis Washington, who has already been sent back down, who did not appear in a major league game, which is a bummer, but also, like, to be clear, this is not a player, without being mean, who, given his statistical profile and output, like, deserved to be in the big leagues. This is a player who got this call because he is beloved in this organization for who he is as a guy. Does he do a big league song? Like, he's done.
Oh, does he do Seattle?
Yeah.
So
Because,
here's
dude,
here's the thing about that. Yeah. And I need to go listen to these songs. So it's great. At
you
the
have it
very
yet?
least, no, I
MODESTO.
I'm excited. I cannot wait. We're gonna speed through the rest of this pod so I can go listen to it. I don't know if Curtis Washington is ever going to make it back to the majors. However, we should point out that the Mariners AA affiliate is in Arkansas. So I hope at the very least he can get back up to Arkansas and do a song about the Arkansas Travelers, who are hopefully not too far from his hometown, that his family can come hang out.
Couple hours.
That's what I'm rooting for. But will he make one about this hilarious call up and like shout out Randy Rosarena's hamstring strain? I support it.
Great.
I agree it's a good. And Uggla. All right, let's go to bad. A lot of injuries yesterday that bummed me out. I'm torn. So Mike Trout's going on the IL. That sucks. Don't need to over-explain that one. But more bad for that, frankly, is that Quinn Priester is out for the year. And this one bums me out even more because Quinn Priester, one of our favorites, is not going to pitch for the Brewers this year. When we talked about the Brewers and what has been going right for them earlier this week, I don't even think we mentioned his name. Shame on us. Quinn Priester, one of our favorites. If you've not seen the clip of us celebrating Quinn Priester being drafted before he was drafted,
channeling our inner Curtis Washington Jr.
Yes, exactly. You can just search for Quinn Priester and Cespedes BBQ. I'm sure you can find it. But especially because that video is something that I know makes the rounds among Brewers front office officials.
It's in Brewers Slack for sure.
Yes, Quinn Priester is aware of this video as well. But it just bums me out that he needs surgery for some sort of like TOS related. He's got a rib. It's bad. It's bad. This is not the kind of injury you want to see.
Quinn
And also, like,
Priester.
yeah, right. Very, very solemnly, Quinn Priester.
Quinn
But also,
Priester.
I mean, the guy was unbelievable for them last year. Like, this is a
Dynamite last
key
year.
piece from last season's team that has not thrown a pitch. So, I guess more credit to the Brewers for finding their way without him, but it bums me out. It's bad.
Boston Red Sox are also bad. They got swept
Boy,
at
are they
home
bad.
this week. They had some momentum. They took 2 out of 3 against the Rangers over the weekend. First home series win since April. Couldn't capitalize on that. They got swept by the Jays with all of Scotland in attendance. The Tartan Army, who has come to these American shores to cheer on the Scottish team in the World Soccer Classic. They needed somewhere to drink during the day, and Fenway Park was as good an option as any. And so they were just doing their, John McGinn chants while the Red Sox were getting whooped by the Blue Jays. That is embarrassing. A better team deserved the Tartan Army, and a Tartan Army deserved a better team. Just the first sign of Chad Tracy, the new manager, frustration, or not really even frustration, but like discontent in the fan base towards Chad Tracy, who is kind of, this is maybe mean, sort of like an empty suit mouthpiece type. For Breslow and Co., Tracy is very well liked. None of this is his fault, but now we're starting to get some toxic positivity from him, and that is leading to a disconnect within the fan base. The Red Sox, for some reason, are displaying a replica of the Declaration of Independence at Fenway Park. Sure.
Uggla? Good, bad?
Uggla? Weird? Maybe focus on the... Jordan, there are some other relics on the ball field, aren't they? Yeah, it's all bad, but really the best bad via Chris Cotillo, the great chronicler of all things wonky Red Sox. Some quotes from yesterday's game after they got swept from Trevor Story. It's hard to believe that this is where we're at. It's hard to put into words that this is where we're at. I wouldn't believe it at all if you told me this at the beginning of the year. Obviously, a lot of things play into that. Sonny Gray said, we're not good. We're just not a good team right now, and that's a fact. Would you rather... You know what? No, I don't have anything else to say. Red Sox are bad. What's up?
Listen, if you're not going to win the back-to-back IKF Caleb Durbin game-tying home runs game, it's not your year. It's not happening for you.
Not your year.
Let's
Scottish
go
fans.
If
any of you are listening, you need a new team. I believe Scotland's third game of the World Cup, their third group stage game, is in Miami. Marlins are frisky. Kind of a hilarious they need you. Like, there's empty seats in there. It's a dome. Your voices would echo. Like, it's
my God.
We've got Super Otto Lopez. Like, it would be great.
That is a team that needs your support, regardless of how much we believe in the Marlins for the long haul. I actually want to confirm this now. So they're playing Morocco today. They've got, oh my God, against Brazil.
In Miami, right?
In Miami on June 24th. Let's take a quick look at the Marlins schedule, because you're so right. Inside for sure. There's plenty of seats available. This team does deserve your support. They're one game under 500. They do have some legitimately good teams. They are, oh wow. Okay, so this is interesting. On the same day, I think this is perfect. Day game against the Rangers, and then night
the Rangers again.
The Rangers again. So noon game. I guess I guess it's a getaway day anyway. Noon game. Marlins Park, Lone Depot. Sorry, Lone Depot. Sorry, Lone Depot.
Sorry, Lone Depot. No free ads.
You paid good money for this.
That's what they're doing in the World Cup.
That's true. And by the way, they're home the weekend before too. So this is set up perfectly. I think this is going to happen. I'm glad you flagged this. I think the Tartan Army is going to go to Miami and fill up Lone Depot Park, as they should. Giants, Rangers, Marlins making a push into a National League postseason. Oh, I'm so excited. It's going to be so much better than this Fenway nonsense. All right, can't wait. All right, my Uggla this week is Trey Cruz. Trey Cruz, Tigers minor leaguer 2020 draft pick. What a weird draft that was. Will reportedly be called up to the Detroit Tigers. Now, why that is, frankly, I'm not totally certain. I guess Gleyber Torres is hurt again. Oh, Wenzel Perez is hurt. Okay, that sucks. Tigers having a tough season. Trey Cruz is infielder, switch hitter, hasn't been hitting very well. He's fine. Utility player. The point is, when he appears in a major league game, he will make history because that will make the Cruz family the 5th ever third generation MLB family, joining the Bells, the Boones, the Colemans, and the Hairstons. But
Jordan,
my Uggla is not just yeah. You probably know where
do
I'm
you know
going
the
with
history of history of this fun fact for me?
Please tell me.
2003 or 4, my uncle got married. At that wedding, the his former father-in-law, sorry, and I were talking about baseball. I was like a little 9-year-old kid, and this guy was like an old school, like New York, like, yeah, like I know everything, bada bada bing, bada bada boom, right? And he's like, do you know the only family with 3 generations in the big leagues? And I was like, it's the Hairstons. And he said, wrong, it's the Boones. And I said, it's definitely the Hairstons. And he said, if you're right, I'll send you $200. So I went home, I printed out the proof because that was the era we lived in, right? I printed it out, I mailed it to him. And after some negotiation between my parents and him, he didn't want to pay up. He was like, you said you'd pay up. Jake was right. I got to $200 and I spent it on my first ever bike. I bought a bike with that money. And so because of this dumb fun fact with the 3 generations in the major leagues, I got a bike. There you go. I don't know if you knew that story.
Unbelievable. You both just upstaged my Uggla, but also made it even better. Because what I wanted to bring up is not about Trey Cruz. It is about the Hairstons. It is about
the Hairstons who have a shot for 4.
That's right. Because Landon Hairston, the son of Scott Hairston, is going to be probably a top 5 pick in next year's draft out of Arizona State. So I love that is the family that is on track to really stand alone after you were doubted at a young age. And by the way, my other favorite thing about the Hairstons is the oldest Hairston.
He played in the Negro Leagues and was like barely in the bigs, right?
Exactly. He played in the Negro Leagues and appeared in 4 games for the 1951 White Sox. But that counts, baby. And so now with Landon coming in the next few years, we will see some real history. So congrats to Trey Cruz. Very cool. But I'm thinking about the Hairstons
Congrats
today.
to me.
And congrats to Jake on those $200. Would you have been like, if that doesn't happen,
am I a bike guy?
Are you like a bike guy?
Sliding doors, butterfly.
What a freaking question. All right, finish us off. What's your Uggla?
The English World Cup team is being based outside of Kansas City, and yesterday they went to the Royals game. That is so funny. It is so funny that the English team
I didn't think about
went
that.
to see the Royals. I don't have many jokes about it. Besides that, that's the whole thing. They had the gaffa throughout the first pitch, which I thought that was an interesting choice. So my understanding is that 4 members of the team went. Harry Kane, one of them, and then the manager Thomas Tuchel, the German. He threw a strike to Quatraro, the Royals coach. See, I'm in soccer mode. The Royals manager. The Royals manager. Great tweet from Harry Kane with some pictures of him at the Royals. Harry Kane and the Royals. Great recovery day with the boys at the baseball. Would love to give batting a go one day. No
Hey.
American person could pop that sentence out. You know what I mean? Like, that's great. At the baseball.
Hey, you want to give batting a go? I know a ball club that could use some help.
The Royals.
Yeah.
Hey, Harry Kane, your Royals aren't the only Royals underperforming recently. That's our show.
Oh, thanks for listening, Harry Kane.
God save the Bobby Witt Jr. Thank you to Colin Brennan and Andrew Hartz for producing. Happy Juneteenth. Enjoy America's two favorite soccer teams today, the USMNT and Scotland, who both play today. A lot of good ball over the weekend. College World Series finals. We'll talk to you all on Monday. That's all I got. Goodbye.